So how do you see indie music, or what is it? If you could explain it to me, or like you said that you hear a lot of that up in App, right?
Yeah, so when I was at Appalachian State University for my undergraduate degree, I was there in the town, and plenty of indie music, which is, basically guitars, bass, kind of a combination of drums and maybe some percussion and such like that. To be honest, it was very prominent because everybody everybody knows how to play guitar, right? It's not that hard to pick up a guitar and put some pedals together.
Not everyone.
Well, if there's people around you that know how to play, I bet
you're a college town. Everybody's like, let me pick up a jam, like impress the girls or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Or hey, all the girls get together and form like a killer punk girl band. I mean, there was some really interesting music when I went to college in App State. If you ever get a chance to go up there and go to some of the bars, you'll have a fun time jamming out. They have shows like every weekend, and so I got totally immersed in going to those on the weekends since I worked at some of the bars. But for me, I was like, man, I always wanted to branch out. I wanted to be my own artist, and I was like, this town is cool, but I don't know if I could break into the scene as easy as some of these other bands because I have a different style, right? I'm not a part of a band. I'm a solo guy. I never was musically trained or anything like that. So,
when did you first start figuring out what your style was?
Honestly, like once I started like wanting to like rap because or just make lyrics, write lyrics. Yeah. That's when I started realizing like, I could be whatever genre I wanted to. I could blend between different genres to get what my sound would be. Okay. And I was probably in like late high school is when I started kind of trying to going a little crazy and isolating to myself to just a microphone and a computer and just try my best to make something that I liked and not really worrying about what other people thought. And I think that's probably why some of my friends were like, what happened to that kid? Like,
you kind of just disappeared.
Yeah, like what happened to him? Like where'd he go? Like what did you do to yourself? And man, it was a wild ride of early high school, really. That's when I started.
Oh, okay. So how would you describe your style now though?
Honestly, a lot of like synthesizer. I would say glitch hop or electric, like I don't say lo-fi beats is kind of like a generic term that people
what is lo-fi beats though? Because kind of like I'll hear it on YouTube for like an hour, but it's kind of like
and you'll see that girl with the little headphones on the little desk.
Well, I'm telling you, man, they are grabbing everybody's tracks and just compiling it into these tracks. So a lot of it it's low fidelity, and so people don't understand what does that mean. What does low fidelity mean? And so it just means like you are taking something and adding more distortion, or taking something that's already has distortion, has like a low fidelity, was high fidelity, and making it low fidelity, like changing the character and the tone, and then the resampling rate of whatever the sound is. Like if it's a guitar,
is it like making it more chill per se, or
yeah, you can say that it's definitely changed. You can definitely take like a sound. Now, obviously, I'm not a copyright guy, but I've learned a lot about how do people, take other people's music and make it low fidelity. Really, it's just you're taking a high fidelity recording and then making it worse. You're just distorting it, making it different, right? Like a lot of times doesn't mean it's making it better. You're just taking it and changing the tonality, changing the fidelity of it.
There's no copyright there then, right?
Oh yeah, there's definitely copyright. That's the thing is like total copyright. Everything is copyright. Like anytime you just, hey, I'm going to make a musical idea, like, and write it down, and somebody publishes it, and then they copyright it if they go to the copyright office and copyright it. Mm-hmm. Like, what these producers don't understand today, and what I'm trying to learn more about, is the publishing side of music, where it's like somebody makes a composition, and then not only do you have to license the composition from folks, you have to license the actual recording, because somebody in a studio recorded the composition, right? So you got the master recording, and then you got the... which is mechanical royalties, and then you got publishing, which is going to be like the composition side of it, which is, I guess, publishing rights or publishing royalties.
Okay.
So a lot of times, a lot of producers, like, you look up the big names, and there's like plenty of people who have taken those royalties over since, like, a perfect example would be the Juice WRLD and Sting. I mean, yeah, it was rough. Like, Sting took everything.
Because he used something, right, from them.
Right.
And so, like, they can just take over it completely.
Right, to take all your royalties. And so as a producer who loves hip hop, loves sampling, the industry, at least I'm looking, is moving towards like how do you make your own stuff? Like how do you use your own equipment to make those type of samples that are going to still be popular, still be vibey, and still be chill, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, people are looking for that. At least for me, that's what I was trying to create, was how do I create music that I like that I used to listen to. I used to listen to the J Dilla, MF Doom, The Alchemist, and all those guys,
Mm-hmm.
and Kanye West, Jay-Z, or whatever. The big names, they all got hit with copyright and all this stuff, and you see it today. Producers are going towards going towards creating their own samples so that they don't have to basically barely break even on one production or an album or whatever.
Yeah, by using somebody else's.
And it's complicated though, right? Because you said like we're going back to the publishing thing. So for like the words have to be licensed in a certain way, and then the person saying the words has to be licensed as well, is what you're saying, or how does?
Yeah, well, they got writers, you got music people, and then you got like lyricists, right? So even the words can be, I guess that's a form of composition, right? So yeah. Their whole recording process, I know, is all mechanical. So that's where a lot of people get hit, is like, let's say you sample, like a guitar riff from a famous Beatles song, or whatever, and then, change it up. People say, oh, creative license or whatever. Like, I changed it enough to where you can't recognize it. And maybe you don't ever know. Like, but these days, I mean, people are just, the technology has advanced so much where you can...
Yeah, like that's ours.
Extract stuff and... Right, and like, no, hey, that person changed it to be theirs, and didn't give me the the heads up. I think a lot of times people just don't know where the sample's coming from. Mm-hmm. Hey, I've been like working on something and being like, okay, well, at least let me try to figure out where this is going from before I go and like mess with it. Because why would I want to work with something and then have it sit on my hard drive? And that happens all the time. You work with stuff and you're like, oh, it's just literally going to sit on my hard drive because I can't publish that. That's like totally copyright infringement and all this stuff.
Dang.
So for like on YouTube, does it like, it doesn't matter then? Like, for example, let's say you are getting monetized. YouTube doesn't pay you out for that, or like? A
lot of times the actual copyright holders or whoever owns the master royalties or the composition rights, they will either take your stuff down or monetize it for their own purposes. That's what Sting did. Like, for example, he basically took all the money from that
what he was making.
Song. Right. It's kind of the idea that
Sting. So
it was Sting as a band, and then like I think Juice WRLD sampled something from them.
Yeah, it was basically right, and Sting is the main guy. He was like the main singer, one of the main creators, and he was like, let me take all this from you guys. And that's where people were like, oh, I'm afraid to sample. I'm afraid to do this. But I think a lot of people still do it for the notoriety. Hey, if they come after me, I'll give them all the rights, but I have the notoriety. And now people know me as the guy who sampled them and made this killer ass beat or whatever.
Oh, okay. Yeah, hey, any type of publicity is good, right?
Well, but I still worry that like some of the actual companies who own the recordings or whoever owns the composition will still be like, I'm going to take everything from you. So why would you even want to put yourself in that situation?
True.
So that's why I think people are trying to go back to how do you make these type of sounds? And that's what I got interested in. The synthesizer part of it, the actual design of the sounds, rather than just taking something and then remanipulating it to be your own.
Okay.
So I think that's where most of the industry is moving towards. If you look at a lot of these like hyper trap stuff and hyper pop beats, they just use these crazy synths, right? In like FL Studio or some of these production workstations where you can design your own sounds and make something that people like and retain all the royalties too.
Yeah, something that's new.
Right. Does AI make it much easier to just like synthesize any sound? Does it take away from the original instrument? So let's say like I have like a guitar, I have like a real piano, I have a real flute. Mm-hmm. Is there a difference though? Can you notice it though with the technology that exists today?
If you can manipulate those sounds, yeah, like, hey, I want it to sound like more, like have like take the flute and like put a bandpass filter on it and make it only sound like this one little part of the frequency spectrum that like, and then add like a reverb on it and then put like a delay or add like another a low frequency oscillator that's going to alter the sounds of the frequency as it's going through the reverb. So you can basically record samples and make them even better with all these real instruments. And that's what studios have been doing forever, right? I mean, it's just now people have it in like the capability to do it inside of their computer, inside of their, because the technology has come so far. I mean, think about it, right? Like you have the same amount of computing technology in your phone that the Apollo rockets did.
Yeah, back in the day.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. Like, I mean, everything has miniaturized and they want and democratized. And I think everybody now, it's not really more about like, how do you listen to music? It's more like, how do you interact with music? How do you actually enjoy the experience of music, even if you're not a musician? Karaoke, for example, is a perfect example of that. Oh, I want to sing the song that they made. Like, I don't want to just listen to it.
Okay. What are other ways that people interact with music that way?
Well, DJs, right? Another good example.
Oh,
like, hey, I can't play that song, but I'll spin it and then like remix. Like, I'll take the drum layer from another song and then take a vocal, right? Combining different types of music, and to be honest, I really wish I knew more about that, because I work with DJs as a lighting operator for the past 7-8 months now in the clubs here in Charlotte, and I just noticed like. The DJs around here, they do a great job. I think the people have a really fun time with them, and they're fun. Mm-hmm. But I think that if I knew more about like what they're doing in the studio before they come, I would be able to appreciate what they're doing in like every time, because sometimes you go in, you're like, all the DJ's doing is adding like an effect in between songs, or like,
yeah, that's all you see from the outside, right?
Right, like. But looking at it from, what's the process that they take before the show? Like, how do DJs even do that anymore? Do they just go on YouTube and download best DJ mix of 2022 and then say, all right, let's play that in 2023? Like, okay, like, and
then add their tag on it.
And I'd be like, yeah, whatever, like, ew, like DJ, whatever, JC, and then it's like, I appreciate that. I think that sometimes people need to work. I think that people would have more fun if I think DJs could have, and the technology exists today. Like, I was downloading it, and if you're a hip hop head like me, you basically are always learning about what's the next technology that's like cool. And I do that through YouTube. I follow some folks. I do that through just like, I got off Instagram because, and we can talk about that. I got totally off Instagram because I don't like being a person who like came from a cybersecurity family. That whole tangent of privacy and people like advertising me all the time has affected my own life. Like, music, as an example, is like I got into production not only because I wanted to do it, but because like all this technology started being advertised to me. Like, do you want to learn how to make beats? Like, buy this.
But don't you think from a PR standpoint it's important?
Absolutely, yeah. And that's one of the things where I'm finding, hey, now, I might be the best producer, but if you don't have a voice, nobody's gonna hear it, right? And so at this point in my career, I'm trying to figure out like what are the ways that I can go about being in social media without being on social media. Like I really don't want to have to put all my private information.
Yeah.
Because I already do that every day. I mean, everybody does this. Like, oh, you want to create another password for another application that's going to track you even more? Like,
yeah, or even I feel like Google like has integrated its system into like every single type of service provider for everything else, that Google just has assembled a mass amount of data with what it's collecting, because you're logging in with Google, right?
Right, exactly.
Makes it a lot easier
to just conglomerate, aggregate everything into underneath one search provider or whatever, browser. I wish I knew more about the technology of that, but I really don't. Learning about. Well, you guys keep me straight here. Before I was talking about Instagram, what was I talking about?
No, but it was interesting that you came from a cybersecurity family.
Yeah, my dad's been in IT for a long time, and growing up, he was always like, he would follow me on Twitter when I got a Twitter or got a Facebook, and he would be like, hey, why'd you retweet that? And I would be like, who cares? It's a retweet. He'd be like, everybody on your timeline can see it. I'd be like, yeah. He's like, and I see it. I don't want you. I'm like, I judge you already for reposting that. I'm like, that's, maybe I should undo that or whatever. Because not just because, hey, I care so much about what my dad thinks, but what if then my job comes down the line and is like, what is that? Like,
okay. But don't you think that goes into like free speech though?
I believe that it does. I believe it does. But I also think people have an opinion to be like, oh, you're retweeting some stupid stuff. Like, that makes you look weird as well. And I get it. Like, hey, I was retweeting, like,
some memes or something.
Yeah, like some memes of people, like, yelling in the car, you know, like, crazy people, like, cursing in the street and stuff. And, yeah, if my employer went on there and was like, oh, this is our guy right here. Like, he looks like he likes all this stuff or whatever. And, yeah, I think people don't really care as much these days, but that impacted me growing up. Like, hey, I don't really think I should be sharing every single thing I find funny. Like, every single thing people will know, like, about me. Like, you can literally just be like, oh, that person likes this is how they are. And you can get, like, a complete sense of who a person, like, how they think, what they know, what they want, just from all this data that they're just publicly posting. Like,
I think everybody went through a little phase, though, right? Like, when you were a little bit younger,
yeah,
you see anything funny, you repost it, like it, share with other people.
I think I've died down on it to where, like, I don't share a lot of more funny stuff, but a lot of the things that I do believe, I don't know, the quotes that I find interesting, I just post them and don't say anything on it. But like, people just make up their own mind, because it's kind of like whenever people read a book, people just get their own insight on what they think the book is about.
Yes,
we don't necessarily get the same information. And so with, like, what Twitter did on making free speech a priority, it's like, you can't even rely on organizations that have been there for, like, a long period of time, you know? It was like the BBC was interviewing Elon Musk, and Elon Musk was that was killer, right? Elon Musk was telling, he's like, well, hasn't the BBC have had misinformation also written on their logs? And that's what I'm saying. So therefore, it's like, we have to scrutinize these, or, like, look into these other companies too, on the misinformation part. Because with COVID, I think it was just so rampant that everybody started to discover it, though, after 2 years, and that's the issue, to where, like, I think free speech is important, because who are you to tell me what is hate speech or something like that?
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree, because you start to get this sort of, like, well, this is that and this is that, and you start to group everything based on, like, what you think. And I think we all do that, like, on a base level. I mean, like, hey, I'm gonna say like, I'm not gonna go to that website, or I'm not gonna hang out with those people because I have this. Like, for me, like, when I was in high school, it was like, I had a bunch of friends who were on the football team, and like a bunch of friends who were nerds, right, who didn't play any sports or whatever. And then I had friends who were really into technology, really into gaming. And those same football players, really into nerd stuff, gaming, all these things. But yet we would still look at the band kids and be like,
hey, look at those nerds.
Which is terrible, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because I'm like, damn, I missed out on all the band kids. They were partying like hell in high school.
Yeah.
Like, I wish I hung out with them more. And I tried my best to be friends with everybody. Theater, I did some theater stuff, and going into college, I learned a lot about about just who am I? Like, what do I like? Like, I don't really like sports that much. I like going to the gym. Yeah, I don't really like going to frats. I'm not really a big party guy. Like,
yeah.
And so when I was in college, I got down to, like, okay, well, who am I going to hang out with? I kind of got this narrow perspective. And I think, that's sometimes we get too narrow. And I would say one thing that I remember in my own life of, like, hey, I'm literally spending every weekend, like, I'm not going to go hang out with anybody. I'm just going to go literally sit in the library and, like, just focus only on, like, recording this crazy rap that I think is going to be cool or whatever. And that turns out to be like, yeah, let me share this to my friends whenever I record it. And they're like, that was terrible. And I'm like, it's all a learning process, right? Like, if I hadn't been so narrow focused, maybe I would have been, or would have had more friends, would have gone to more parties, would have had more fun, right? But sometimes you just, like, I would tell myself, oh, like, don't waste your time with that.
Yeah, true. Focus on what's important to you.
And I think that was part of the kind of going back to what you were saying. I think people are trying to focus on what's important to them, and they're going to say, hey, if it's important to me that people don't hear about, COVID misinformation or whatever, then I'm going to do something to try to block it. I'm going to do something to try to stop it. And unfortunately, if you go look into what happened at Twitter, what I've been hearing is that the government actually got involved, and I don't want to say that I know this for sure, but I've definitely heard that the FBI told Twitter, hey, we don't like what you're doing, so we're going to punish you if you don't follow what we have to say about this and this. Like, get rid of that, because, it's a health security, or And I think the problem is you saw doctors being silenced because they had a focus that was more broad than some of these other folks. And
Allegedly.
right?
Yeah.
So that's the whole idea is like is if you do your own research and you come up with your own opinion, you should be able to say that. You should not be silenced. You should be able to talk about that freely.
Yeah, true. I saw some things on Facebook that like say like all this information on here might not be true when like COVID was around and stuff. So yeah, I definitely saw a lot of examples on that on Facebook.
But I think it's just important to disclose the fact that something might be potentially theory or something like that. It's just like on the foods that we eat. It's like this has this many calories in big capital letters, but it's up to you whether you consume it or not.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's like don't eat that, and trust me, I've been there before, like 3 a.m, I go to the Kmart or whatever. It can be like, pick up a 97% saturated fat, like,
exactly.
Like, little thing. I'm like, let me get 2.
Yeah, it hits a little different that late.
Exactly.
I know, especially after being in a smoky club for 5 hours. And then you go, it's like the same guy who shows, it's like, he's like, I've seen you probably like, 5 Saturdays in a row. I'm like, yeah, I buy the same thing every time.
But for example, in the creative part though, do you plan on keep on evolving? Because like I feel like Charlotte is such a big melting pot. Even with the music networking group that I met you.
Yeah.
Like the type of artists that I saw in that networking group was just like, I do this, I do this, I do this. And it was just a variety of things. And I'm like, oh, that's just simply interesting. Because I'm interested not only in how the singer's creativeness pops up, but I think it goes hand in hand with the producers and like the writers. Like all of them have to mix together good so that someone can like blow up.
Right. It's a team effort at the end of the day. It's really not one person who puts it all together. And I've been reading this great book about Jay Dilla. And he was talking, and it talks a lot about how he was always in the background producing, and nobody really knew who he was. If you guys knew who Jay Dilla is before I started going,
I've heard of him.
It's a good kind of to go off what you were saying. He was a producer from Detroit who got into working on these new machines, MPCs that were being developed then by Roger Lynn from who made a deal with Akai. And so basically, Jay Dilla was always in the background. He never really got the recognition he deserved, but he was a prolific beat maker, like always, every day doing the thing. And at the end of the day, he died young, and he never really got the recognition he deserved, but he was involved in everything. Like he didn't really care about the recognition until toward like later in the end. Like, hey, I want to do a solo album. He'd been working on like Tribe Called Quest, Erykah Badu, Common, all these famous people that you're like, I love that person for this,
And he was always in the background producing.
So it's really a team effort, right? So it's not only people think about Drake. Well, do you think about Mike Dean? The producer, or some of these people who produce for them, like some of the people who actually touch everything and you touch you, but you don't know them, right? Like sometimes they're not always in the credits. Because I think at the end of the day, right, it really takes like a powerhouse of people. And yes, Charlotte's growing. I think there's gonna be a lot of opportunity coming here, which is really why I want to be able to stay in this market and stay here. I've been here about 15 years and love the area. Didn't really grow up here in Charlotte. I grew up south of Charlotte and was really tired of taking that one lane road up to the town. Everything outside of Charlotte is kind of still. It's growing. But it was all come from like a rural background, cows and farms.
What part of Charlotte did you grow up? South Charlotte, you said?
Yeah, so I grew up in Ballantyne, and then we moved farther down when I was a little older to Waxhaw. So a lot of people from the north come down, and really from all over the place coming to Waxhaw, coming to Carolinas because great climate, pretty good job market, good policy, decent policies. And we have opportunity here, right? So I think that I'm trying as a producer. I'm trying to seek out and be a co-writer, work with more artists because I've done that a lot I've done a lot on my own work and just tried to hone my craft. My buddy Philip always said, master your own craft before you. But he would always tell me, I would show him something, and be like, hey, what do you think about this? Be like, just keep working on it. And so He'd be like, keep working on it, right?
Okay.
Because a lot of the stuff is like, you don't know what you're doing. You actually suck. And he would just tell him, or it would be good. And he would be like, just keep trying. And so that's where I'm at. I'm still in the mode where I'm trying my best to find my sound. I think I've honed it a lot. I think I'm now at this point, I'm ready to like finally start reaching out to other artists and working with them. Be it in a studio setting, that would be great. I don't really want to go out and spend $500 on a studio where I could just record everything, and then send it to them. So like, and then they record it. I'll go to the studio, but if you're going to record it, and it's my beat and I spent all my time, how about you pay? I don't know how else it's going to work, but the whole idea of going to like a nice recording studio and like paying for that, like that was what I wanted to do. Like I was like, I want to do it all in house. I want to buy everything. I don't want to go and pay for somebody else to do it. I want to learn how it works.
Do it all yourself. Yeah.
What does a nice recording studio have?
Like good mics, like isolation rooms. What I'm saying, great mixing and all this type of stuff. I don't have because I never had the money, right? But if you look at some of these big studios in Charlotte, Gap 3, I had a buddy who actually owns a smaller one, Striking Silence. They just work really hard, saved up all their money, and just were able to reinvest their profits from the studio back into it. I'm assuming, because from what I've seen, and these people work really hard. They produce a really quality product with the high end gear that they have. But I, coming from a small town, or coming from Charlotte and growing up and just working my ass off all the time at fast food joints, restaurants, different places.
I saw that on your resume, yeah.
And spending my money, right? You don't always save and think, hey, I need to get that Yamaha like 32 channel mixer or whatever so I can make money recording bands or whatever. I never grew up that. I never grew up with producers. I grew up with got my uncle who would come over and with my cousins and like jam out on the guitar, and they would be like playing shows like in their hometown and stuff. And I never grew up with producers around me. I kind of just fell into like learning about it since I love music so much. And if I had known more earlier about it earlier in my career, earlier in my life, I probably would have like set that goal of let me actually try to do more recording and not the producing side, because I fell into the producing side since it's just a little bit less expensive to get into it. And it's more of like a solo thing. Mm-hmm. So,
but what do you enjoy more? Kind of more the producing side, or like actual recording you?
Well, it all goes hand in hand. So, I mean, I was like, let me try to record myself so I can get a feel for like if I was to record another artist, what would it be like? And I've done that with a couple of vocalists that came over the first time. Hey, I put myself out on the internet. Was like, hey, I'm available for recording services.
Yeah, okay.
And I had some folks come over, and they were like, oh, I just want to download like a cover song from YouTube, because I'd showed them some stuff that I made, and they were like, I don't want that because whatever, it's not good for me. And they were like, and so I think that a lot of artists in Charlotte and a lot of artists in general are, and I've come to a point now where I've seen them. You see it today is everybody wants like a custom made project. Like people don't want, and sometimes people, and I remember doing it in the beginning. I'm just going to go to YouTube and download like a thing. Like I'm just going to download a beat, track it to it, enjoy it. And I did that for a couple folks. But what you start to see is that doesn't like really get you very far, because you always owe somebody else down the line. Like the person who you paid for that, or like,
it always comes back somehow.
So whenever I look up free rap type beat, if I like, let's say I blow up with that beat, I'm still owe that person that type beat.
You might have just bought that too. Like it depends what your deal was. You buy it from them. Hey, like straight price, like $50. It's done. You don't owe them anymore. Sometimes the other deals are like, and this is what I want to try to do, is try to do more like exclusive or leased beats where you basically after so many plays, you pay me again for that. So it's like, let's say 100 plays, you owe me another $25.
Also, you own part of the song per se.
But that's
right?
a leasing system.
Exactly. Versus an exclusive where it's like $1,000, one fee, and then you never have to pay me again. And nobody else can use the same beat.
Does the industry mostly have leasing systems, or does it have more kind of like, because I see sometimes that like Still Dre, right? Still Dre is like one of those recognizable beats. Mm-hmm. Like I'm like, every single time another person uses it, they still have to pay Still Dre, right?
Well, and you kind of see it also in like the cover song market or like this. Yeah. So a lot of times, like when you're using, like, what do you mean? Like if a DJ plays it or if they use the same beat or something like that and like make a cover of the Dre beat and like they like take out Drake's vocal or Dre's vocals and then put like their own vocals. Is that what you mean?
Well, I used it in our example. Like, for example, I posted a short on YouTube and used that Still Dre beat instrumental.
Okay.
And it says copyright claim. It's like your video will not be taken down, but if the video blows up, you have to pay them the royalty.
Right, exactly. It's the same idea. I mean, YouTube does it. Basically anything that's like usable that somebody like put into work, right? Something that is their thing, copyrighted, and it gets tracked. And so I've tried to be very careful with like what I use because people can take like a second of your content and then like claim it as theirs, and then all that money goes to them, and you don't get anything. So you will get the notoriety, you get the people know me, but
you're not getting the funds behind it.
Which is why I think in every business people are trying to make their own make their own stuff so that they can avoid copyright, or make deals with people where, hey, I'll license this from you, I'll lease this from you, but a lot of times people don't do that. So the system has just become, if you take my stuff, I'll just take your money. And so it makes sense. It's totally fair. I mean, like, yeah, some of the stuff is a little over the line. Like, hey, I take like 2 seconds of like a little bit and I made it, and then it's not even really, it's in the song like one time and then they copyright the whole song. Like, I think that there's rules to this game, right? You cannot take people's stuff. It has to be original. And so I think a lot of producers are trying to stay away from sampling any copyright, anything. So that you don't run into situations like that.
So that's why an artist would look towards someone like you that, like, for example, you've tried to hone your craft to where everything that you've done comes out original, right, so that nobody comes out and claims it down the line because. Yeah.
Well, perfect example, dude. I mean, I was watching I heard a guy, a YouTuber called DJ Payne, and he had this situation that he explained, and I totally can understand where this comes from. I could totally see myself falling into something like that. Like, hey, you use a sample, like, and then you make a beat with it, and then you say to an artist or like a major label, like, you want to buy this beat that has a sample in it for $1,500, and then that you give it to them, they buy it. They take it, and then they're like, oh, I got to clear the sample. So they go out and they spend $10,000 to clear the sample. And then they come back to you and say, all right, now you basically on all your future royalties, that $10,000, you basically have to earn $10,000 in royalties for us, and then pay us, who had to pay the clearance fee or whatever from the label company. So basically by and that's a perfect example where you get yourself in a situation where you're completely in debt immediately, like $14K in the hole.
What did he sample?
So I'm not exactly sure, but his example was like, hey, I sampled something, sold it to a label, and then they came after me, and the label was like, hey, we had to clear it, and the clearance cost was $10,000. So not only you basically owe us $10,000 in your future royalties. So anything you make on that song goes right to the people who you're clearing the sample from.
Yeah, because you're in debt now.
Because you're in debt to them. It's basically like, you use my shit, I take your money. It's not that hard to understand, right?
Yeah.
Then after that, I would just try to go all original. But the thing is that then, like, how do you really resonate towards people every single new thing that you're gonna throw out there? I mean, you just have to like really test and try it.
It's gotta be good. But that's a perfect example, right? Like, you don't want to get into such a situation where if you're a rapper or an artist or singer, where your producer is like just throwing onto you stuff that's copyrighted, and you're just like, because now you're stuck with this baggage that you're like, oh, I have a copyrighted beat that I love that I just posted, and now people are like trying to get me to, or not posted, but I have to go out and figure out how to clear this. And now the producer, I'll just go to the producer and say, hey, you created the beat. So I think it starts with where the music's coming from, right? Mm-hmm.
Is there any way to get copyrighted when you get an inspiration from something else? Or if you just made it all yourself originally, get an inspiration?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that you can't copyright like a chord on a piano, like a C major 7. You can't copyright that. You can copyright like a progression, I think, or something like that. Like some of the composition stuff, like, I heard a track. Like like for example, like I listened to like the beginning of like an Alchemist beat, and he had like this piano sample that was like D, it was like a D minor or something like that. And I listened to it and I played it on the piano, and I was like, okay, so if I record this, am I gonna get copyrighted by whoever he's sampling? Okay. Do you know what I'm saying? Because I'm basically using the composition, but I was replaying it like he was replaying it inside of his sampler. Yeah. So it's technically not the same composition, but I can't give you really a solid answer because I never really looked that up. I would imagine the answer is probably no, because you can't copyright a chord, you can't copyright just like thinking of something on the piano. Like sometimes people just make they make up something and they're like, oh, I recorded that, and then they listen to the song that they were just hearing, like that does sound pretty similar to what I was just listening to or whatever. So that's probably like a question for like a music rights lawyer or somebody, a person who knows more about the composition side of it.
Gotcha.
But that's an interesting question for sure. I wish I knew the answer to it.
No worries. Going back to you said music, you do light production, right? Yeah. What goes into light production, like when you like meet a DJ per se, and they're gonna like, I don't know, play at the club or something?
Right.
Or you said you'd also do corporate events, no?
Yes. So a little bit of background. I went to App State for broadcast media. Have not gotten into broadcast media. Right. I'm doing like basically live events where we may stream it with like a corporate group. But to answer your question, lighting, I got into the job as a lighting operator through my coworker at the job that I work at full time as a corporate audio video event technician. And so she basically had been working there and brought me in and introduced me to the gentleman who basically he's already set everything up. His name is Ryan. He's a great guy. I've been working for him about 7 months now, and what goes into that is I've done some installation at my corporate job, but for the nightclubs I have only done operating, not installations. Okay. But from what I can tell, it's basically you basically go to the club. Hey, you need lighting. Ryan will come in, or whoever the installer is, put the light, like rig the lights up, run a bunch of cable to each light. You have like a box that splits the signal into all those lights, and then some of those boxes go back to like a main central, like a hub, where you can control all the lights from a board, like you would like a mixer or
like this right here,
or like that right there, like basically like a MIDI controller. And so it's all computer based, at least what I work with most of the time. Sometimes you have standalone units like controllers that have everything on it. You don't need a computer. But particularly some of these clubs that I work for Ryan at, we use computers that run a software, and we use a controller to control all the lights. And so there's a lot of programming that goes into each light. Hey, this light needs to be this color. You can group lights. You can change them different colors. You can do different intent, like you can make strobing effects and do some of the lights can move, so you can program like a pan or a tilt, or have all those lights do like shine on the disco ball, or you can basically control groups of lights. And what I really enjoy about it is the way that we have it set up at some of these clubs we work at is it's all based on the rhythm of the music. Really, like I can control the lights based on the rhythm. Like I don't really have to go in and like type in a code or anything. I can just use the sliders on the mixer or the buttons on the mixer to make changes in the lights. Okay. So at the end of the day, and you can program stuff to be like, oh, do that for me. Like I don't really want to, make the lights turn on and off every 5 seconds. So I'm going to program the button inside of the computer to, turn the lights on and off every 10 seconds or whatever, or to the tempo of the music.
Okay. Got you.
It's pretty complicated, but it's I would love to do more of it for larger venues and at least get my hands on some different boards, because, like I said, working until 3 a.m. is difficult. Just if I was working in the middle of the day for a rock show, that would be cool. And I like working for nightclubs. Did it because I kind of wanted to try to learn, just network with DJs and stuff, and see if they knew anybody that I can work with as well.
Okay. What about the audio production? What goes into that? You said that's your main job, right?
Yes. So it's a lot of pushing stuff around, getting stuff from storage containers and setting it up for clients. We have some companies will bus all or truck all of their gear in and do a show. I'm with a company now that we are global, so we have relationships with all these different venues across the world. And I'm here in Charlotte at a couple of venues uptown, and we basically bring the mixer out, we bring the microphones out, bring the unroll all the cables. I've probably rolled like thousands of feet of cables, like since I've worked at my job. Like it's so much cable wrapping and just we do staging. So we'll set up backdrops with like different like paneling on them. We'll set up lighting on truss, projection on rigging truss, like hang it from the ceiling and then like shoot it down at the TVs and stuff. And then a lot of times I'll be operating, so I come in the back. We have like a video switcher that you can say, hey, I want to go from the presentation to another, like basically connect all these computers into one box. That box, you can choose which input you want to do. And then the video audio stuff is a ton of testing beforehand, a lot of preparation. Hey, like, you know, we have 10 mics in a room. You don't want to make sure those mics don't feed back into each other.
Oh yeah, you're right.
And we have specialists on our team that do that, and we all try to learn everything. It's not like because you don't want to have that hit by the bus syndrome. Oh, Angie is sick, so nobody knows how to run the board or whatever.
Okay, everybody kind of has to know what to do if some person's missing.
Yes, it's definitely a multidisciplinary job, and I'm doing it still at a small level since I'm my first job out of college, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and I think a lot of people don't realize how much work it is. Like,
yeah, and you're talking about these events where, for example, they're giving, I don't know, like a seminar type thing, or
like, hey, it's like if you don't press this button, the CEO will look really bad in front of the whole company. Perfect example.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, if you're working, and a lot of times you're working with meeting planners or producers. We do everything from lighting to audio to video to network. Some days they'll be like, hey, we just need you to patch an internet line. And I have to go back and mess with the internet stuff and work with that. So, but you work with a lot of high-end people, a lot of people who are like at the top levels of like these organizations, because you're running their presentation, you're working with them, everything is on the line. So it's a lot of pressure when it comes down to it. If the event is complicated, if it's not very complicated, it's not that much pressure. It's pretty much like, oh, I'm pressing like 2 buttons and then I'm good for the rest of the day or whatever. But it can be exciting when you're working with like, you know, space companies or like a weapons company that you're listening to their whole presentation and they're giving you the in-depth on what the next technology is going to come out be, or like what they think the future is, and you just listen like a little fly on the wall, just absorbing it all and just hoping you don't like cut their mic off at the wrong time or whatever.
Dang. Yeah.
What's the most? Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
What was the most interesting one that you've heard? Because I mean, it's like a networking thing, right? You take in all that information. What's the most interesting that you've produced for per se?
I know it sounds terrible, but it was honestly for these doctors, just because I got like a close in like, and these doctors who do like this most interesting thing to me was, there's a lot of them, but when I first got into it, just what I did not expect was to see like specialists come from like all over the world just to this one location, and like they're all these doctors that specialize in particularly hernia surgeries. It was interesting to me because it was like a worldwide thing. Everybody came there and they only do this. And it was just all these different types of people who only do that one thing.
Hernia.
And so I was like, just not, well, the sad part, the worst part was when they came to me with all their presentations and videos and stuff, it was like, oh, there's like videos of like people getting surgery in this video. And like, I'm like, can you put like a graphic warning on that or something? Like, geez, like it was brutal. And then we did, so that one was pretty cool because of just like, you just realize how smart these people are, that you realize why they're getting paid $3 million or whatever it is, like to do this type of thing. And like, I'm like, man, like that is just a trip because of how how only these people do that one thing, and they are like extreme experts at it.
They like specialize, in
And
just
they're all
those
coming to
things.
Charlotte though. That's also interesting, right?
Right, just all meeting in one, and like it's like you just see how different they all are as individuals, but then they all can coalesce around this particular subject, right? Just like any workplace. I'm trying to think of another. We had some really funny ones. I'm trying to think of another good one that we did. We get a lot of Smurfs, a lot of like people who want to come in and they have a budget to meet, so they kind of go on the lower end side of stuff, and it's just like, hey, you need this, but you didn't order it, so you're present, and they come to you and they're like, oh, like, and you have to enhance the event like right on the spot and stuff. And so there's a lot of customer service involved in some of these events. I'm trying to think of another interesting one. We had yeah, there's just so many, honestly. Like, we just, like every day is just another group of people that are doing, it's like HVAC, we have the steel conference, we had the boat show, like, we have just so many different people, like, and you touch so many different organizations that, like, you get a feel for, what people are doing in society, really. Like, some of the stuff, that guy, I didn't realize that, like, steel was such a big industry, and like how they're bringing all these machines into the convention center uptown, and just it's a buttload of work to be able to just get them set up, hanging signs, hanging so much stuff, and working with all of their like lighting requests to light all the gear. But it's amazing because they bring in this like cutting edge technology, and you're just like some of the first people to see some of this stuff that's in the industry. So yeah, one of the more interesting was the steel conference. They brought in these crazy like machines that are just like working on all the like stuff that builds buildings and like builds all. And I'm like, I've never been around that type of gear. I've never known what that even existed. I can only just imagine what that looked like, but now I can see it and just be put into the moment of like these people working with every day. Like, this is somebody's like baby that I'm standing next to. Like,
dang, did you know that you were gonna do that coming out of college, or like, did you have a mission for your degree?
Well, I thought that I was going to come out and work in radio or television. I had been on the TV and radio station at my school, and we really enjoyed it. We did everything from a lot of the stuff I'm doing now: video switching, working with microphones, working with digital audio workstations. But no, they did not tell me anything about that. I had no idea that event production was actually an industry that you can be in. I had no idea. I thought that I was going to have to keep searching for a sales job at like iHeartMedia, which I tried to get one of those, and they went with somebody else. But like, I tried my best to break into with the opportunities that I was given, and I wasn't able to do it. So at this point, I basically was like the first job that took me was this event production job, and I learned as much as I can, and I'm trying to get promoted in it now, so I can be on the sales side rather than being on the floor and just design the actual events, since I know what the event should look like as an operations person.
Oh, okay.
But I never knew I would ever get into that. I didn't even know it was a job, and I was never told it was a job. I was never made aware until I started looking like frantically for audiovisual jobs. So I know no prior knowledge of it.
Yeah, but I think more where you're headed though is kind of like you want to do the artist side of it though, right? I think that's also the most.
That's pretty much how I got into it in the first place, was looking at all these people who I listen to and being inspired by what they're doing and try to emulate it myself, with whatever I could get my hands on, be it a computer with Audacity that I'm just recording, multi-tracking into like shitty little tracks, versus working on some of this high-end audio gear that I have now, and making stuff that is unbelievable to me, but keeping it on my hard drive because like it's got copyright on it, or that thing isn't fully done. Everything to me is still like, I'm a perfectionist, so, and I try not to be, because I have so much stuff that I released that was not perfect, but now I want to perfect as much as I can, because looking back on what I have released, it's not perfect. It's pretty raw. It's not like my best work. and I put it out there because I needed something to put out. Because like I said, I wanted to try to get something to show people. Hey, I'm doing this. This is what I've been hidden away in my room doing this whole like 3 years or whatever.
But that's cool though that you have something that you're doing like in the background that whenever it's kind of like whenever luck meets opportunity, it's like you're ready for it.
Yeah, for sure. It takes a little discipline though. Now, I mean, it's definitely like when inspiration strikes, which is kind of the luck of it.
When is it, right?
When am I going to come up with something that's like good? Because I've come up with things that I like, and I can say, yeah, I would love to play that at a show or love to do this something. But hey, I don't have a fan base. I don't have any of this stuff because I'm pretty much underground. Like I just work on my own, which like a lot of my buddies did growing up. I had some crazy friends, not crazy, but good friends who were really talented. I can think of one. His name's Colin. He got me into producing with Ableton. If you guys are familiar with that DAW, it's a popular workstation that most people use. And he just had so much stuff on his hard drive. Like since like 6th grade, he was like working with that program and just had built up this massive like library of just unfinished, like, but almost just utterly amazing, sounds and tracks. I'm just like, why don't you put that out? He's like, I'm just still on it. He's a perfectionist, right? I'm like, I'm still working on it.
He's still working on it.
And so therefore you got inspiration from him?
I got inspiration from him after I had been very sporadic about releasing stuff, because like before I kind of started working with him, I was just like, whatever comes to my mind, I'm just gonna put it out there. I don't really care. Whatever it is, who cares? Like, just put it out there. And I got bad reactions because I wasn't working enough on the stuff. I had some friends be like, that's terrible. And you see it, and I don't like that. And some people are like, that's really cool. Like, that's just a different vibe or whatever. I didn't expect you were going to make something like that. So I got both sides. Like, hey, just by putting it out, I was able to get some critique and some feedback and to know, hey, at least I'm doing something wrong or I'm doing something right by putting this stuff out, which I think was beneficial to me. And I want to release more, but I should be doing more promotion or marketing and stuff. I kind of want somebody to do that for me, because I don't really like I don't like being on social media. I don't like I don't like staring. I don't like scrolling. I've done enough of that. Yeah. I've done enough of trying to and I'm not really that talented at that. I'm not like a great graphic designer. I'm not a great, I want to do everything in house, but I'm trying to find more people who can, I can work with, or I can enlist their services to help me out and make a better product, right? And promote it better, right? Without me having to do all this extra work that's going to be subpar, since I'm like trying to be a jack of all trades and a master of none, right?
I think that's good though that you see that you need somebody to focus on that so you can focus on what you're good at, or what you like,
or what I want. Because really at the end of the day, like, I don't like posting stuff 24/7. I just like being a studio rat, just working with other artists, working on stuff of my own, and hell, playing some video games whenever I get a chance, whenever I'm not want to relax.
What's your favorite video game?
Well, I'm kind of turning into a late 2000s gamer, because that's when I started gaming, was like in high school, and so I never really wanted to play anything else. But because when I went to college, I did not take my Xbox. I told myself I'm not playing video games for 4 years. Like, I'm not into any of that. And that's kind of how I got into music stuff. Is I just totally did not do video games anymore. Totally got out of it. And but yeah, my favorite video game from today that I used to play then, I used to play GTA 5, of course.
GTA,
right?
of course.
I really love now. That's like the only thing I probably play is Battlefield 1, because it's just a graphic first person shooter, and I don't know. I enjoy the violence of it, I guess.
I know that's good. You're honest with yourself, right?
No, that's good.
It's kind of a strange hobby to have, playing like violent video games, but just the like I said, in college, totally cut it out, because I'm here for a reason.
That's a big step though. A lot of people can't do that.
I know, man. I had roommates who were like, they brought their console, and it was like every night he'd be falling asleep to like watching Family Guy on his Xbox. And I was like, that's cool. I'll watch Family Guy, but I guess I gotta get up and turn the TV off or whatever.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that, but
Yeah.
but no, I did see people and just, and like myself, just get totally involved in all this new technology. Like kids are addicted to this stuff. And I mean, it's easy to get addicted to video games. I mean, I did in high school because all my friends were doing it. All my friends were like, yeah, let's get on and play Xbox. I'd be like, all right, cool. Like, I guess we're not going to the diner or whatever to hang out with the girls. We're just going to play fucking video games or whatever. Like,
and to be different is kind of like a step to be weird too. Kind of like to where like you're like kind of like over here.
Separating yourself from
But I guess it's also beneficial though to like spend time and really hone in on what you want. Because I think the sooner that you do it, the sooner that we do those things, it's like the sooner we'll be happier too.
Yes. I definitely find that even today, whenever I sit down and I'm like, try and play a video game, it's like what am I doing? Like, you know what I'm saying? Which is sad because it's like I want to try to enjoy it but I can't enjoy it anymore because like I don't. Number one, I just play with myself, and number two, I feel like I'm wasting my time, and that's really what I'm trying to. I'm not trying to waste my time anymore, and unfortunately, yeah, you get drawn back into like wasting your time with video games because. Oh, I'm out of college now. Let me just give myself a little break, right? And then it starts to do more, kind of overreach a little more. Once I cut video games out of my life, the music stuff started, and so the more that I can delve into music and delve into the artist production stuff, the happier I seem to be because I'm like creating something that's like there. Like video games to me was like this thing that just. You do it and it disappears. Like you just die and then you respawn. Like and that's it. Like,
and that's it.
You literally just do nothing.
Hold on, let me check out my camera because I think either the memory got full or something. Because that's what happens.
And I was gonna say the other thing I'm trying to get into. I was looking more into. I want to do like another hobby. I want to get into electrical like building synthesizers or building like electronics. Mm-hmm. I've been looking at some DIY stuff on YouTube to try to do
like building like this type of stuff.
Well,
like
that's a little high end, but yeah, like building. I want to do like some basic like build like a little sound module or something. Build.
Okay, I got you.
Some of the stuff is if you're not into it, like if I say this like VCO or like a voltage controlled oscillator, a voltage controlled amplifier. I want to learn more about like how to build those things so that I can just get deeper into what is this? How does this stuff work?
Oh, okay, guys, so you can understand it better.
Yeah,
like in itself, yeah.
And just just be like, hey, I know this skill, and I can transfer it to maybe another type of position, another job, or another part of the industry that would be cool. I mean, I think it would be awesome to work for like a manufacturer of music products one day. Since I love music products so much, I think it would be interesting to work for one of them and see what it's like on the inside of some of these companies, and get a feel for what they do. If it's electronics or if it's building microphones or building, I'm basically at the bottom end of the event stuff where we're all just basically buying everything from manufacturers, and that's what I've been in. I'm basically I love buying stuff from manufacturers, like especially music and audio related gear. And if I could work on that side, I think it would be cool to learn what that's like. But for now, still trying to just learn the products themselves.
Okay, that's good.
We appreciate you coming on the podcast. Like I said, I think a lot of artists, though, are going to get something out of it, too. Because I didn't know anything about the whole copyright thing. And I'm interested in also, like, all the sampling stuff. But when it comes to, like, getting that complicated, then it's kind of like, well, I'll just leave it alone and be a little bit more lean towards producers like you instead of my producer using just, like, samples off people or off YouTube. So, anything you want to say before we
wrap it up?
Yeah.
I just want to say I really love working with other artists. If you guys see this on the YouTubes, definitely reach out to me. You can find me on Spotify as MC Fuel. It's the way you would traditionally spell it, EMCEE Fuel, like gasoline. And I'm here in Charlotte, based looking to if you want to work with me in a studio or get some time to do a call with me, do a Zoom call, we can definitely review what you're looking to work on. And I'm just looking to have more relationships, more friends. And I think this was a great opportunity to get to come out here and have you gentlemen ask me some questions and get to know what my process is, what I'm thinking about the industry, and where how I see myself going forward. So anything, I'm always willing to work with new folks, and I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Of course, thank you for coming.
Everybody who stayed this long, thank you for watching, and I'll have his information down in the description. So if you want to check that out, please do, because I feel like there's a lot of Charlotte artists there on the come up, and so therefore don't kind of get leaned over to getting copyrighted before you're even famous. So get famous with something original.
Perfect. Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to put it.
So
like, comment, subscribe,
and thank you for staying this long.
All right, peace out.